What's going on YouTube? It's Teach, back again with another video, and today we are going over a 2024 NFL mock draft. We finished my summer scouting for the offensive side of the ball, so we want to break it up and talk about this 2024 draft class as a whole and bring you another mock. So we're going to use the PFF Mock Draft Simulator. Just a quick programming note, I actually prefer the mockdraftdatabase.com simulator that I used for the majority of 2023, and we will use that once we get to 2-round mocks. I really love their feature about being able to see previous picks made by a team, whether it's multiple picks in the first round or you get to the second round, you get a reminder of who a team took in the first. So we're going to get to that, but for right now, we're going to use PFF's Mock Draft Simulator. If you missed any of our offensive position rankings, definitely check them out. They're all up on the channel as is. And then we're going to transition over to the defensive side of the ball, starting with interior defensive linemen. But let's go ahead and kick things off, starting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock. I did do a forced trade between them and Arizona just for transparency's sake. I don't really want to wrestle with the conversation of if Arizona is going to have the #1 pick, will they take Caleb Williams over Kyler Murray? There's just so much we still have to kind of figure out with what Arizona's timeline is. What do they think of Kyler Murray? Can he come back this year? How good does he look? All sort of stuff. And it's a lot easier to make that decision for Tampa Bay. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with an obvious one here. Caleb Williams is the pick at #1 overall. Look, it feels like the Bucs quarterback situation is a little bit of a nightmare right now. Baker Mayfield unable to pull away from Kyle Trask. Maybe that says good things about Trask, not so much negative things about Baker, but I'm interpreting it as a minus or a negative for Baker Mayfield. So that's not great. It's a roster that I feel like is pretty solid across the board otherwise, but QB position definitely holds it back. And if they get to win the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, then all of a sudden in 2024, they're contenders in the NFC South. Then with the #2 overall pick, we get back-to-back picks here for Arizona. We're going to go Marvin Harrison Jr., especially after this team trades DeAndre Hopkins. I know they draft Michael Wilson, but I think there's a world where Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. can coexist. Marvin Harrison Jr. is just kind of a souped-up version of his dad, taller, faster, stronger, and his dad's a future Hall of Famer, or currently a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, when you're able to emulate the technique and the polish for the craft of a all-time great at the position, especially during his generation, but then do it at 6'4", 215 pounds, have an awesome athletic, kind of profile. Yeah, and I mean, once we get to my initial big board, once we finish up defensive player rankings, right now I'm going to be a little surprised if Marvin Harrison Jr. is not the #1 player in this class, in my opinion. So then we're going to go ahead and double down on secondary, or not double down on secondary, but double down on the perimeter, I should say, and go with Kool-Aid McKinstry. Right now, I think he's probably the best corner in football, but I haven't gotten to the cornerbacks yet, so don't set that in stone. But yeah, size, speed, free, coming from a school that obviously, kind of turns out these, high-level NFL prospects, especially in the secondary. And Kool-Aid McKinstry was one of the highest-graded, players in the country last year using PFF's data. So if he's able to double down on that, he's going to have one hell of a resume to put together for, potential top 3 type of selection. And also prioritizing position value here, going wide receiver then corner. If Arizona is going to keep Kyler Murray in place, those are the types of moves I want to see from Monty Austin, Forth and Co. To get this team back on track. Then we get to the Colts at pick #4. I thought about Joe Alt here, but I'm going to go with Jared Verse, a guy that was kind of shaping up to be edge 2, at worst edge 3, before he decided to go back to Florida State. I love these guys who have gone from small school to big school, and Verse has done that from Albany to Florida State. Was on a tear the first 4 games of the year last year at Florida State, but then ultimately kind of got banged up. Injuries kind of held him back, and I think that's kind of incentive to go back and play for the Seminoles one more year. That, and maybe he thinks that FSU is going to be the dogs of the ACC. He thinks maybe they're the team to beat. But I think if he's able to stay healthy this year, he'll be able to say, hey, that wasn't just 4 games. And then he'll kind of solidify himself as a top 10 pick in this year's class. So it's a little bit of a risk reward, but the reward, potential payout is definitely big for Verse. And right now, really front runner candidate for edge 1, in my opinion. Then we get to the Washington Commanders, and another easy one here. It's a little awkward to replace one UNC quarterback with another, but I thought Sam Howell was really good, and then I watched Drake May play for the Tar Heels, and I was like, he's a different dude. He's got prototypical size, good athleticism, maybe. There's a couple things you can kind of nitpick with this game. Go back to my quarterback rankings. Throws off his back foot, too willingly sometimes. Will go deeper and deeper into the pocket when he kind of gets himself into situations he doesn't need to. Probably looks a little bit better passing the ball, at least technique wise, inside the pocket versus outside. But he's still such a playmaker and he's such a good athlete that you're willing to take that risk for once he gets outside the pocket. But yeah, to me, worthy of being in that top 5 pick conversation, and a really nice QB2. And those 2 top guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, this is making up for a really, really nice 2024 draft class. Now we just got to see how everyone else shakes out at that position. Then we get to the 6th overall pick, Green Bay Packers. I'm just going to give him a potential David Bakhtiari replacement. Right now, Joe Alt is my number 1 offensive tackle. To me, I love Olu Fashanu, and spoiler alert, he is going to go in the top 10 here. But I think Alt's just a little bit more well-balanced between his run blocking and pass blocking. He's an elite run blocker and a plus-level pass protector versus Fashanu, who's an elite pass protector. Leaves some to be desired in the run game, so that's ultimately my decision-making and what made me go in the direction of Joe Alt. Next, the Raiders at 7. We're going to go back to the cornerback. Well, we're going to go Kalen King. I mean, this is a guy that had better grades last year, again, using PFF's data, than Joey Porter Jr. Now, I think they're two different people, not only with their build, but also the skill sets and like their coverage capabilities. Joey Porter Jr., I think he'll be fine in zone coverage, and as a Steelers fan, I'm certainly hoping that's the case. But he's man press, and like you just look at him and be like, yeah, that guy should be playing like man press coverage. Kalen King is smaller, but way more twitchy of an athlete. Where like I was a little concerned about Joey Porter Jr., didn't run the 3-cone. What's that change of direction skill set? I have no concerns there for Kalen King. This guy flies around the field, has great top-end speed. I think he can be sticky in man coverage. He's just sub 6 foot, so that might be a little bit of an issue for some teams, not all. And I think he's got great fluid, movement skills to be able to be more than fine in zone coverage. And he's got a good feel for that. Good ability to kind of break on the football, keeps his eyes in the backfield when playing zone, so he can be a playmaker. Just shaping up to be one of the best corners in this draft class. But again, I haven't gone over every corner in as much detail as I've done with the offensive guys, so maybe my opinion will change a little bit. Next, we get to the Tennessee Titans, and look, I know they added DeAndre Hopkins, and that's cool and all, but I'm going to go wide receiver and Emeka Egbuka here. One of the sharpest route runners in the game. I think really the only thing left for him to prove is, like, can he play on the outside? Everything else about his game, to me, is NFL ready. He's got the size. He's got the hands. Again, the route running ability is fantastic. Kind of maybe second to his teammate in this draft class. So if he can prove he plays on the outside, I think he's going to go in the top 10. And for Tennessee, let's say DeAndre Hopkins does work out. Let's just say that is a good pairing and a good landing spot for him. Draft Emeka Egbuka, and then we're talking about Treylon Burks moving to the slot. Okay, I'm totally here for that. Had a lot of success playing that spot at Arkansas. Egbuka and then D-Hop on the outside. Okay, that's a pass-catching core I can be scared of. Now, obviously, it'd be the transition from Ryan Tannehill to Will Levis, but if you want to see your second-year quarterback have a lot of success, that wide receiver trio gives you a good pathway to being able to do just that. On to the Rams. I'm going to go Olu Fashanu here. Like I said, he's going to go in the top 10. I think him and Alt both are warranted top 10 picks consideration, at least at this point in the draft process. Elite pass protector, only has really 1 year of starting at Penn State, and it's amazing to see how quickly he's picked the game up, both above the shoulders, but also like his technique, his mirroring ability, his footwork is fantastic. If he gets a little bit better in the run game, you could easily convince me to flip him in Alt, but we got to wait and see what happens this upcoming season at Penn State. And then for the Rams, I was excited about when they re-signed Joe Noteboom, but last year he looked pretty disastrous, and we're another bad season from Joe Noteboom away from saying, yeah, left tackle is a massive need moving forward for the Rams, so felt like the fit was there. Back-to-back picks for the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to address the spot I think is pretty clearly the weak spot of their roster. We're going to go defensive interior followed up with edge. Jer'Zhan Newton, or Johnny Newton is how I'll pretty much refer to him the rest of the way on this channel. Just, Jer'Zhan's a cool name, but Johnny Newton, something about that. It's got a nice ring to it. But, right now, defensive interior one, a little bit of a spoiler for the upcoming, defensive interior rankings, but I mean, if he came out last year, he probably would have been shoulder to shoulder with Kalijah Kancey on my big board. Just a great combination of quickness off the line of scrimmage, more than enough play strength, knows how to use his hands. He's polished. There's not much that needs to be cleaned up there. Great against the run, can shoot gaps, plus upside as a pass rusher as well. So may not be like the elite, freak of an all-time freak of Jalen Carter, but he's a much better run defender than Kalijah Kancey, and Kancey may have him in regards of get off, but everything else I might lean towards Newton. So again, like he may well have been defensive interior 2 for me last year, even over Kalijah Kancey, who went in the first round. So just kind of hyping up the prospect that I think Jer'Zhan Newton's going to be, and we'll talk about him more in the interior defensive lineman video. Now getting on to the edge player I'm going to take here, I'm going to go Chop Robinson, highest pass rush grade of any pass rusher in the college football sphere last year using PFF's data. And yeah, you see it, man. And I think, a 4-3 defense is totally fine for him to fit in. Really twitchy at the line of scrimmage, and Penn State's just got a pipeline of these insane athletes coming in through their program. And if he basically doubles down on what he did last year, especially with his hands, it's going to be hard not to envision him going top half the first round. This is shaking up to be a pretty nice edge group. So a lot of these guys could go even higher than what I have. Right now, we only have the one edge player in the top 10, and goes in the top 5 for that matter, is Jared Verse. But I could easily easily see someone like JT Tuamalo or Chop Robinson here, or Leatu Latu, who we're going to talk about later on. All these guys with another year of good production could easily shoot up into the top 10 conversation. And Robinson, of course, just outside of it, easily one of those names that could be in that consideration. To the New England Patriots, I'm going to go Brock Bowers. He's just Mike Gesicki who could block. Yeah, he's a little undersized, but hasn't affected his run blocking production. And obviously a freak after the catch, awesome contested catch guy. Could play inline, play slot, play out wide. I mean, he is kind of the new age tight end that teams are coveting, right? So in a world where New England's going into the next offseason, Hunter Henry a free agent, Mike Gesicki's only on a one-year deal, so he's hitting the market. This kind of feels like the perfect guy to replace and be the next like New England great tight end. And Brock Bowers, I know it's kind of maybe a little like insane that he's not going to the top 10, but I'm still weighing position value here, so the tight end slips enough and falls right in the hands of Bill Belichick. On to the Falcons here at pick number 13. I'm going to just say that the Desmond Ridder experience does not work, which, much to the chagrin of many Falcons fans, and I totally hear you, and I'm willing to be wrong on this. I'd actually look forward to being wrong. I'm going to go Quinn Ewers. Really, he's got one half of good football in a game against Alabama, but what's working in his favor is that half of football was awesome. I mean, it was like, oh god, this guy's a future first rounder type of stuff. I know Alabama was a little bit of a down, Alabama squad last year, but nonetheless, to still do that against the Crimson Tide is crazy. And he's also got two great wide receivers with him, Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Like, he's got the weapons around him to put up another monster year. He just needs to stay healthy. And also, we'll see how the competition between him and Arch Manning kind of plays out, but hopefully that lights a little bit of a fire under his ass and gets him that much more, prepped and ready, and, kind of pushes him that much further to being into a guy who could easily sneak in the first round. I think the talent's there. This is going to have to be the year he shows it, though, because if he doesn't, then it's Arch Manning's job. He's in the transfer portal again, and then that's going to kind of just put an ugly tarnish on his draft profile moving forward. But really excited to see what Ewers does. He's either going to be someone who goes top half the first round, or he's going to probably go back to school because he didn't show enough. Then we get to the New York Giants. And look, I'm starting to come around on the Jalen Hyatt hype, but let's just say they need one more wide receiver to kind of make everything work. Let's go Rome Odunze. And I really love his size. I think he's a pretty solid route runner, good enough after the catch. I think he's a pretty well-rounded guy. And I think that size is something the Giants are missing right now, like a 6'3" guy who can win in the air and contested catch opportunities. And then you make Jalen Hyatt the designated deep threat, open up the middle of the field for Darren Waller. It's like, boom, if you add that one more piece, almost, I'm not saying Rome Odunze is Jamar Chase, but it's almost like when you add Jamar Chase to the Bengals, it's like everything else just fell into place, and everyone's role, it just suited their skill set that much more. And I can see the same thing happening here with Odunze, and not saying he would be the one and Hyatt wouldn't. It could be, kind of a committee one based on who the matchup is. But I think adding that type of skill set to the wide receiver room the Giants just don't really have right now in any of their wide receivers on the roster would be a huge add, and I think it makes everything else kind of fall in the right spot. On to the Broncos, I was just kind of tinkering around with this. I wanted to get another tight end into the first round. Didn't know where I could put Ja'Tavion Sanders. And I was thinking, the Broncos could actually be kind of a fun spot. It's not like it's a strength of the roster. Sean Payton's had a ton of success with tight ends. I mean, Jimmy Graham's entire, highlight of his, prime, right? Like, that was with the Saints. That was Sean Payton. So, Ja'Tavion Sanders, could he be somebody that Payton likes and targets? Maybe. But, Brock Bowers is probably the greatest tight end prospect I've scouted. Not as much as, some of the guys who've been doing it for, decades on decades. So, sample size included. Yes, I know that's a little flawed to say, but, Brock Bowers is a freak. And then Ja'Tavion Sanders, I don't want to say they're like shoulder to shoulder, but he's not terribly far off. I just think, Bowers, after the catch, you can do a little bit more. He's just probably a little bit better of an athlete, but Sanders also adds a little bit more size and weight, too. So, give and take, Bowers probably a better run blocker, too. But, we'll see what Sanders does this upcoming season at Texas. But to me, he's a clear-cut tight end, too, in this class, which is shaping up to be another really solid tight end class, especially at the top with Bowers and Sanders. And if he doubles down on what he did last year at Texas, another weapon for Quinn Ewers to use, right? Then, yeah, he's going to go in the first round, in my opinion. Then we get to Seattle, and this is where I have Latu come off the board. I mean, this is a guy with 12 sacks last year at UCLA on less than 500 snaps played. So the pass rush win rates there, had a ton of pressures. The sack total was fantastic. And he's basically another year of that type of production away from doing it all over again. Heck, if he plays 650, 700 snaps and still finishes with 12 sacks and a similar enough pass rush win rate, I think he warrants being a first rounder. He's a guy I'm really excited to get a deep dive into and really see how he wins on a play-in and play-out basis. Because he looks like a guy who's really refined and ready to go from the NFL standpoint, from the little I've seen. But now I just got to really get at the deep dive in. So I'm really excited to get to edge after we do defensive interior. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go to the linebacker position, but I'm not going to go Jeremiah Trotter. I'm actually going to go Barrett Carter. These guys are, again, I haven't gotten to linebackers yet. That'll be the third position group we get to on the defensive side. But I think Clemson's going to have my top two off-ball linebackers. It's going to be Carter and Trotter or the other way around. And they really have a nice symbiotic relationship where Trotter is fantastic pre-play. Like, this guy can sniff out the play coming before it feels like the offense knows and have come out of the huddle. Like, it's insane, his pre-play anticipation. Because of that, he's a really good run defender, great at crashing downhill, just leaves a little bit maybe to be desired athletically. And then you have Barrett Carter, who all-time freak athlete, awesome in coverage, can play hard downhill, can be crazy useful as a blitzer. It just comes down to, I think you add, if you could take a little bit of Trotter's skill set and how good he is anticipating plays and put that into Barrett Carter, then it's not a conversation. I think Barrett Carter is the number one off-ball linebacker in this class. So that's where I'm really excited to see how this plays out. Can that play off? Can Carter learn that from Trotter? Is that like a exchangeable quality? Or does part of the reason Barrett Carter gets to fly around the field to be a playmaker and look awesome is because Jeremiah Trotter's putting him in the right spot, helping him and communicating and all that sort of stuff? That's something I need one more year of Clemson. I'm really excited to see, but I think Carter right now is, if teams feel like he can be the leader and the mic of a defense and get a little bit more anticipatory, skill sets like Trotter does, yeah, then he's off-ball linebacker one to me. Then we get to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm actually going to go back-to-back defensive interior guys, which I've started to look at a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to go with Leonard Taylor. This guy is really, really special. 6'5", 305, has bend and has some snaps playing on the end. I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Jones, but if Leonard Taylor becomes the best version of himself at the NFL level, he could be a guy like a Chris Jones almost, where the Chiefs are like, hey, the mismatch to exploit is against the Bengals right tackle. So Chris Jones, you're going to go play end, and you're going to go one-on-one, and you're going to get the sack that sends us to the Super Bowl. And that's exactly what we saw with Chris Jones in the postseason last year. And Leonard Taylor kind of has that potential. We're talking top 1% of his career upside, but that's the career upside for him. But also on the inside, fires off the line, has strong hands, good punch in the chest of offensive linemen. I think if he adds, a couple of, finesse moves to go on top of that, this guy's gonna be really special. But he's also a really fluid athlete. He can, he can get under, he can win that leverage battle. He can shoot gaps. Athleticism shows. It's just man, you really add a swim or a spin or something like that, he could be really, really special. He's also a really fun player with the push-pull, because he's so strong, he'll get into the chest of an offensive lineman, and then once they're kind of helpless, he'll just throw them aside like they're ragdolls, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, right now, defensive interior number 2. I got him going to Minnesota, clear point where they need to get better. And then we get to the Houston Texans, and again, going back to defensive interior, and this is definitely a projection pick. Mason Smith, highly touted recruit, and I was kind of thinking last year at LSU when Mason Smith got hurt week 2, or it might have been week 1, honestly. I was like, okay, this is gonna amplify Jaquelin Roy. He's gonna be right up there with the top guys in this class, like a Brzee and Jalen Carter. Didn't quite happen that way, and actually Jaquelin Roy is probably going to be in line to be a starter for Minnesota, who we just drafted defensive interior for. But Mason Smith, so now I got some refound hope in this interior at LSU. Highly touted recruit, so I'm kind of going off that. The athleticism, we just haven't seen a whole lot of him, so he is definitely a wild card here. But if he can live up to the hype, he's a first rounder. And it's definitely a spot where the Texans can get better. I'm not really in love with Malik Collins and Ronaldo Lopez and those types of guys they have on the roster. So Mason Smith could be a huge upgrade for them. Next, New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go interior offensive lineman. Right now, I kind of view Connor Beebe late first, early second type of guy, maybe even further into the second round. And, you could have even gone with my top interior offensive lineman, but, come to think about it, they probably have him at offensive tackle, Graham Barton. So in retrospect, maybe Graham Barton is my move here, but they also did just draft a tackle from Old Dominion, Nick Saldiveri, and with the intention of playing him at guard. So I don't know if they want to do that again versus drafting a true guard. Anyways, long tangent aside. Beebe, to me, would have been a second rounder last year, so he's NFL ready. He's proven. He's ready to go. He's a fantastic pass blocker, good enough athleticism to get out and block him to the second level. And I'm looking at a Saints interior offensive lineman that Cesar Ruiz didn't get his fifth-year option picked up. Andres Pete, often injured and honestly, I think overpaid. So, that interior offensive line for New Orleans, I think, is going to need a rehaul or an overhaul, rather. I think Connor Beebe is definitely a good step in the right direction. All right, then we get to Miami. I'm going to go J.C. Latham. Already plays right tackle for Alabama, so this would be kind of ideal because that, to me, is the one weak link on that Dolphins offensive line. We'll see what Austin Jackson does this year. I know there's some Dolphins fans hyped up for him, anticipating a breakout. I'm in the wait-and-see, kind of maybe a little pessimistic camp where I'm not really anticipating it happening, but been wrong before and be happy to be wrong here again with Austin Jackson. But assuming right tackle is still a need, don't have to even move Latham's position from Alabama, and he's a guy that has some super high highs, like easily could be in that top 3 offensive tackle conversation. But he's a little handsy, and when he gets us wrong, racks up penalties. 11 penalties alone last year. So needs to get better with his anticipatory type of skill set. Same thing we were talking about with Bear Carter earlier on. I think it's a little bit more. I can bake on a tackle learning that more than a linebacker diagnosing what a play is going to be before it's had. And if Latham does that, cuts down on the penalties in turn, yeah, he'll be a first rounder because he's got everything else you want. Then to the Ravens at 22, let's go Dallas Turner. I'm not entirely sold on Turner. Kind of lived in the shadow of some other edge rushers there at Alabama, namely Will Anderson the last couple of years. But now he's got his chance to kind of break out. And I know there's a lot of people hyped on him. I'm excited to see the tape and what it all entails. But because of the hype, I put him here in the first round. But he's a guy that I'm just not entirely sure because what I've seen so far hasn't really stood out all that much. But oftentimes when I'm watching Alabama, last couple of years I was watching Will Anderson. So maybe that's my own fault. Then we get to the Chargers at 23. I'm going to go running back here, Trey Benson. He was one of my top running backs in this year's class. Him or Blake Corum I'd be fine with. I'm also a big fan of Travion Henderson. I think there's some upside and could easily see him being a first rounder as well. But Benson, man, great blend of contact balance, can do the short yardage stuff, but also has plenty of long speed to be the big play guy. And also not a bad pass catcher. Like, he's really shaping up to be a front runner for RB1, him and Blake Corum. And I know Benson's RB1 early on for a lot of people too. So here you basically send him to LA and let him be Austin Eckler replacement, especially with his pass catching ability. I think that would actually be a pretty good place for him to land. All right, then we get to the Dallas Cowboys at 24, and I'm actually going to do the safety spot. Not that I think their safeties are bad, but it'd be nice if they got a little bit of an upgrade, and I think Cam Kitchens could be just that. Basically make him the free safety. Donovan Wilson plays in the box, plays some strong safety. I think that could be a really nice landing spot for him. Freak playmaker, uber athletic, played over the top at Miami last year, and right now Miami probably has the best safety tandem in college football. Cam Kitchens is a big reason why. Yeah, like I said, 4 picks, 5 PBUs. He's just a playmaking free safety, reads the ball well, makes plays on the ball, can read the eyes of a quarterback, does everything you want, and an over-the-top free safety. And if you added that to that secondary for Dallas, that has Stephon Gilmore, Trayvon Diggs, Donovan Wilson, whew, that defense gets even scarier. For the Green Bay Packers' second pick, this one actually comes courtesy of the Jets. I'm going to go back to the safety position just because right now Rudy Ford is scheduled to start. So I'm going to go Kalen Bullock, another guy with 4 picks last year. He had 6 PBUs, as memory serves. So another playmaking safety, graded out really well in PFF system. And I think right now Darnell Savage probably better off as a box safety. So Bullock is that over-the-top free safety I think would be a nice compliment to him. Then we get to the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go to the secondary, Cooper DeJean. Now, look, I know they signed Cam Sutton, and I know they signed Emmanuel Mosley, but Mosley's a 1-year deal. And then, you're kind of left one. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, slot, strong safety hybrid, 1-year deal. You could be looking at next offseason with, the Lions having Cam Sutton and then question mark at the other outside corner spot. So that's where Cooper DeJean comes in. Iowa runs a ton of zone coverage, but he has the athleticism and the build of a man coverage specialist corner. So it's a really interesting blend. It's a little bit of a projection for sure, but it's graded out really well. Don't know how he'd hold up in a man-heavy Aaron Glenn defense, but maybe we'll get to see a little bit more of that this year in Iowa. But I think the measurables and athleticism will say maybe it's worth giving him a shot. But also I think this could just ultimately be something that the Lions are trying to address early on next offseason, whether it's a priority in free agency or potentially in the first round of the NFL draft. To the Jags, let's go JT Tuimoloau, a guy who had some flashes last year at Ohio State, and this is his opportunity to kind of be the next big Buckeyes pass rusher, right? And if we take those flashes from last year to on a consistent basis, he's probably going way higher than 27, right? So just haven't really seen the full season breakout as opposed to man, he's got some games, he's got some double-digit pressure moments in games, but haven't seen anything more than that. So this is his potential breakout season. Him and Dallas Turner are definitely 2 of the edge rushers here in the first round, where I'm projecting a little bit, kind of going off hype, but I'm excited to watch them for myself. Next up, Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go Kingsley Suamataia. I wish I could have gotten him on the board earlier. And I am kind of projecting a flip to right tackle, which in turn would say that I don't believe Spencer Brown's going to be good this year. This could be the third-year breakout for Spencer Brown, but in the case it's not, let's just say first-round tackle, flip him over to right tackle. That'll be the approach for the Buffalo Bills. And I love Kingsley Suamataia is my way too early, offensive tackle 3. Size is there, athleticism's there. I think you just clean up his hand placement, punch, things that are very correctable. And this guy is a first rounder. So, and also we saw a huge turnaround midway through the season last year for BYU. Was really not a great run blocker to start, but then by the end of the year had been a plus level run blocker. So things like that kind of signal and indicate to me like this guy's figuring it out. He's starting to make some progress across the board. So we saw it with the run blocking. Now I want to see with his hand placement, and if that's the case, he'll be in the first round. Philadelphia Eagles then at 29. This is where I'm going to have Blake Corum come off the board. It's a one-year deal for Rashad Penny, and honestly, Penny's got some big playability. And Corum maybe doesn't. Like his big plays are like 20, 25 yard runs versus like taking to the house. But Blake Corum could be a really fun addition behind maybe the game's best offensive line. If it's not number 1, it's certainly a top 3 to top 5. So where there's going to be a lot of holes, there's going to be 3-4 yards before he sees contact. Get the guy that has the best vision in this draft class, in my opinion. That's going to be awesome. And he bounces off dudes. His contact balance is fantastic. Not much in the way of a receiver, but Philadelphia's always been able to work through a committee, and I don't think that would be a huge issue for them because they would just, bring back a Kenneth Gainwell or work something out with the DeAndre Swift, and they just work through that rotation. But I think Blake Corum, right now, I can say confidently he's the best pure runner in the class. Maybe that'll change when I get a little bit more Trey Benson tape or a little bit more Travion Henderson. But right now, I think Corum has the best vision, probably the best contact balance, and I would just love to see him behind that offensive line. Then we get to the 49ers. I'm going to go potential projection pick here. I'm going to go Blake Fisher. I also love Zion Nelson, so I really thought about him in this spot, but we'll come back to him in just a moment. Could have gone Graham Barton here as well, and Barton actually would be a fantastic scheme fit. So I'm just viewing Barton more as a guard, so again, maybe I should have used him for New Orleans, but hey, we're going to do plenty of these mock drafts on the channel. A lot of things will change. We'll play around with fits, all that fun stuff. But I'm going to go with Blake Fisher because kind of like Kingsley Suamataia, it's like his flaws right now are very correctable. I think Fisher's mean streak comes to life more on tape in the run game than it does in pass protection. I think his pass protection in general needs to be polished. Like he doesn't have much in the way of an anchor, but you see how much of a mauler and mover of people he is in the run game. So again, you need to see that translate. The hand placement, again, something that needs to be cleaned up. But high-end athlete, he's playing at a school that develops offensive linemen left, right, and center. So if there's a place for him to get coached up in those areas, Notre Dame is one hell of a place to do that. So I could easily see him working in that, late first round, early second round type of conversation, or maybe even higher than that. Next, the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go Javon Bullard, and mostly played slot last year for Georgia. Maybe we'll see him more at safety this year. I am projecting him basically as a Mike Hilton replacement. It's just tough with the Bengals because their roster's so good that it's really difficult to try to find, where they can get better. And, maybe I could have gone off the tackle and just, keep addressing it. Maybe you go guard here and just try to find that left guard of the future. Maybe could have added edge depth too, but they just extended Trey Hendrickson. Could have added another corner, sure, but I'm not really in love with the corner value here right now, at least until I get to see these guys in a deeper dive. So I'll go with Javon Bullard and say, hey, he's going to be that Mike Hilton replacement. Again, played slot last year for Georgia, one of the best defenses in football, won the national title. Like what I saw, especially attacking the line of scrimmage as a run defender and being used as a blitzer. I think he has a lot of those skill sets that could make him a nice Mike Hilton replacement, and Mike Hilton last year was deal in Cincy. Last pick here in this updated, way too early mock draft, and I got to be transparent here. Really thought about Johnny Wilson. I know they drafted Rashee Rice, but he's like a possession wannabe wide receiver. I'm not saying that he won't work out, but he wants to be a possession wide receiver, and he wants to play like he's 6'3", 220, but doing it like 6 foot, 195, 200. And it's like, that's interesting. And because of that, I feel like he doesn't prioritize getting separation as much as maybe he should. He's good contested catch opportunities, but he also like Velcro to a defender, wants that contact, wants to play through physicality when maybe it's okay not to. And then aside from that, it's like, where's the size? And I could have gone with either one of these Texas wide receivers. There's definitely a lot of people buying into their hype. I just need to see it first before I put him in a first-round mock. But Johnny Wilson, really nice possession threat. Great at catching the ball in the air. Can be a vertical threat because of it. He's not the fastest guy, but I think moves well enough for 6'7", and because of that, can force the issue over the top. Good in the air, obviously, as you would expect for 6'7". Awesome red zone threat because of his size. Not much more so red zone threats now. You're a good red zone weapon if you can separate and get open because it's such a tight space. But if you have the old school conventional thinking of size wins, Johnny Wilson's going to be a stud in the red zone. But I decided to go off the tackle here instead. You know, as much as Johnny Wilson I feel like is the wide receiver that the Chiefs don't have, I'm going to go Zion Nelson, who to me right now is a really fun player to watch. He's been in my way too early, draft rankings for the offensive tackles many years in a row now, 2021, 2022, and I believe 2023 now as well. So it's 3 consecutive years for him to be on my way too early tackle rankings, which is kind of crazy. But anyways, the reason I decided to put him in that spot was, man, he's come such a long way from that week 0 game where Florida ate him alive. And, aside from the injury last year where he only played 2 games, you look back to 2021 and 2022, he's taken huge steps in the right direction as a pass protector. Still leaves some room to be desired as a run blocker, but I'm okay with that, and we can continue to fix on that. And also, the Chiefs are going to pass the ball a lot. So I'm kind of making this selection assuming that Nelson stays healthy and assuming we get to see even more growth as a pass protector. There's still some things he needs to fix, and he probably needs to gain about another 5-10 pounds in muscle because he is a tight end converted to tackle, and you still see that a little bit, not nearly as much as he did in that week 0 game 4 years ago against Florida, but nevertheless, the main point being Donovan Smith's on a 1-year deal. Left tackle is going to become an issue. I think Zion Nelson needs to be a guy that late first round, pass-happy teams looking to target. I think Zion Nelson would be a really nice fit there in Kansas City, at least how I view him as a prospect right now. But guys, that is going to do it for my updated 2024 mock draft. We're going to start pumping these out probably every other week, maybe once every 3 weeks, but we're getting closer and closer to the start of draft season, and I know my viewers and subscribers love mock drafts, so we're going to continue to pump these out more frequently than what we did during the summer, but summer slow time. Now we kick it up into high gear, talking about prospects, talking about mock drafts, talking about fits, all that fun stuff. So if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. A lot of fun draft content and football content in general coming to the channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit the like button if you did. And leave me your comments down below. Who's your favorite team? Did you like the pick? Do you think I'm crazy? What prospect didn't go in the first round that you think I should have included? Who went too high? Who went too low? All that fun stuff. Any of your thoughts you want to share on this mock draft, I want to hear about it down below in the comments section. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.